Hey everyone, and welcome to another Sasquatch Theory Bigfoot interview. On this episode, we have Bill and Stacy from Potosi, Missouri. Stacy had a Bigfoot encounter in Potosi off of the Big River at a conservation area. Stacy also had a terrifying experience at a conservation area in Bismarck, Missouri. Bill also had a terrifying experience, and Stacy was also present during the encounter, and he was in Licking, Missouri off the Big Piney River when hogs came into their camp and they heard a terrifying scream. I read off Bill's encounter in the past, and it really opened up a lot of doorways for the channel, and a lot of people came forward from the Big Piney River area to talk about their experiences in the Mark Twain National Forest. I have noticed that a majority of the reports that I have collected throughout the years are coming from the same areas of Missouri, and I don't believe that is a coincidence. If you have had a Bigfoot or cryptid encounter that you would like to share with me here on Sasquatch Theory, please get in touch with me at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com, and if you guys can, please subscribe to the channel and like the video. Stacy, if you would, tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where we're at, and your Bigfoot encounters from the very beginning.
All right, I'm Stacy Jinkerson. I was born here in Potosi, and this is where we're at. And I'm really avid with the outdoors. I enjoy being outside. I enjoy being in the woods. I enjoy camping, things like that. And this was the first time and the only time that I've ever seen Bigfoot was in this place that we're at. And I had my two children and my ex-husband. We were camping and we were coming down a trail to get some wood. And my little daughters, they looked up, and probably about 40 foot away or so, my 6-year-old was like, "Mommy." And so when she had kind of stuttered that out, because she'd stopped and there was a fear in her voice. She had, seen something. So of course I had looked over that way, and my ex-husband, he was in front of us a few paces, and he stopped and looked over where she was looking. And we were all looking, and suddenly from a cedar tree up so high, and it was the motion that caught my eye, there was a large, animal is the only way to describe a Sasquatch, because it's animal. And it fell from a height, and when it landed, there was a loud thump, like a hollow thump, but it was loud from such a distance. And it didn't necessarily jump so much as it fell, and like a dead weight fall. And after its body had absorbed the landing, it bounded up in the same motion in such a graceful way. But when it stood, it was probably every bit of 8 feet tall or more. And it was thin. It was a rangy looking thing. It wasn't big like I'd ever expected. If Sasquatch, I'd expected to look like a silverback gorilla, and it wasn't. It was very thin, and it had very dark, almost brown black hair, and it was long and kind of wavy and matted, and it wasn't like shining and beautiful in the sun. And it was kind of a day similar to this. It was cloudy enough, but it took just a few leaps away from the tree, and it was gone. It was lost in the woods, and you could hear it crashing. I don't know for what distance, because I can't even begin to calculate the speed at which it went, because the way it moved was so smart, and these woods are so thick that it kept the trees at its back. But we all foresaw that. And so, we, like I said, we weren't here to hunt Sasquatch. We weren't here to we were here to camp. And yeah, we were coming to get wood on the trail, you know what I mean? So several months before that, we had heard on a camping trip, my ex-husband and I, this terrifying scream. But this was the only time since that I have in broad daylight. And so I don't know if what we saw was a juvenile, because you know what I mean, for just the daylight. But again, it was so close to the trail, and the way we had come up on it, or perhaps because we were the only people here in this whole camp area. Yeah. So you know what I mean, it probably felt comfortable, maybe, I don't know, and kind of seeing what was happening in its surroundings.
Do you think it was watching people?
It had to have been as close as it was to the trail.
Yeah.
I mean, it was close. It was at the edge of where the hardwoods start. It was right there, so.
Yeah. So you're walking down this trail in a cedar thicket, and your first sign is your daughter being alarmed, and then she probably saw something. How old was she whenever?
She's 6.
Okay.
Or 6 when she saw it.
Yeah.
Right around 6 years old. And it was about this time of year also. So I mean, so there wasn't a lot of leaves in the trees. It was a clear shot through, and it's just, there's no mistaking that what we all saw. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you see the face on the figure, or did you just see the form?
It fell when it came out of the tree. I saw it from its profile. I saw it from the side, and because whether it turned and looked at us, I don't. It was probably doing that before whatever spooked it that it ran from us. But we saw it from its side, and because the head was a peculiar shape with the hair, the way the hair came up to the top, it wasn't rounded like my head is. The way the hair kind of came up, it was almost not conical, but it was a pinched look at the shape of the head, and it was such a dark color, the whole of it. Like there was no identifying between that profile, and also it was such a quick and shocking encounter. You expect to see deers in the woods, you expect to see birds in trees or squirrels, but you don't expect to see something like that. And all I remember for the most part is that it was between its tall, rangy, lean shape, it had long arms, and it was graceful, powerful in the way that it bounded up, because I mean, it came down from every bit of probably 12, 13 feet. I mean, it just dead fall. And I mean, it was graceful. It was a purposeful landing. And but the hair, it had a wave to it. It wasn't straight. It was every bit of probably 6 inches worth of hair, if not more. But it was waved because it was matted in places. It was dull. It wasn't, there wasn't a beautiful, like it was animal hair as far as that went. This thing lived in its environment, and its environment was the woods, and so. Do
you think it fell out of the tree, or do you think it jumped down?
No, it jumped. I say fell because it was like a deadfall. It wasn't, there was no, I wish I could describe the way it landed. It landed and leapt almost in the same action. It was animalistic in a way, but there was no taking a minute to recover, no leaning. It was just that you could see that its body took, it after it absorbed the shock, and the way it landed, like it bounded at the same time. It's almost like it used that, and it just sprung up with such a powerful leap. I don't know how to describe it other than that. It was an incredible thing to see, because I mean, that was also shocking to see. It's an unnatural for a human form to do what that did, is what it is. I can't really, you know what I mean? Yeah,
and whenever it sprung up, was it upright, or was it on all fours?
Yes, it was. No, it wasn't on all fours. It didn't even touch all fours to land on the ground. Its knees were bent enough to absorb the shock, and there was so much power in the upward lunge, but it never touched its hands to the ground. Its hands never touched to the ground. The arms were like this when it landed. When its knees bent, the arms kind of went up like this, and then as it came up, its arms went back down. Because then it took off running. Because I remember the arm, it's just the shape of it. The arms were so long, because it was lean, and the arms were so long, the legs were so long. It was just, but it was up like a human. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. And how tall do you think the creature was?
Every bit of it had to have been 8 foot. I mean, that's just kind of my guess from where I was in relation to the tree, and the length of it. It was every bit of 8, maybe 9 feet, because I'm 6 foot tall, so it would have been above where top of my hand reaches. Yeah. At the top of its head.
Well, that's definitely bigger than a juvenile.
Yeah, it was rangy. It was very skinny, even with all the fur on it. You know what I mean?
Slender, like a basketball player?
Yes, very much like a basketball player. But it just didn't have that hulking, like,
it wasn't like a football player with the pads and helmet.
No, the hair didn't pad it out either. And it was rangy, is the best way I can describe it. It was just a very, very lean. Like I said, whether there was ribs showing, who could know? There's that much hair that it's all just hair. But even the shape of its shoulders were slender. It was just slender in form. And it's just the sheer that slenderness, I think, also with those very long limbs, but the power and I mean, I say slender, but I mean, it was probably about this wide, you know what I mean? But it was all the way down that way.
Yeah.
It was all big. It wasn't like a skinny person that was just very tall. It just wasn't, I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's the best way.
Still a big creature, but it seemed like it had a thin waist.
Oh yeah, easily. It was not even the thin waist. It was the shoulders that surprised me. That it wasn't hulking brute muscled shoulders. You know, that the shoulders were slim in proportion to the rest of its body. You know, it didn't look like a gorilla so much. You know what I mean? Like a silverback gorilla with the hulking arms and the, you know, it was every bit proportionate to itself. But I mean, I had to have been a few hundred pounds. I mean, it wasn't like it was going to blow away in the wind. To make the sound that it made as it came out of the tree, it was massive.
Did you hear it crashing down?
No, I heard the sound that it hit when it hit the floor's floor. Yeah. It was a hollow thunk. And I mean, if you or I were to jump right now, just to jump and let our bodies land, you wouldn't hear even a muted, you just wouldn't. He's over there walking right now, you know, and it was audibly loud thump. Like, I mean, if you can imagine a tree falling, you know, and how it hits.
Sounded like somebody dropped maybe a big log out of the tree.
Huge. Yeah. Like if you could imagine something like that, a dead weight like that hitting the ground, and that hollow, flat thunk that it makes, and then the crashing through the brush.
Okay. So. No, that's a good description. I've heard the thump a lot, and I talk about it a lot on my channel, and you know, that's a vital piece of information because I've speculated, you know, are these things jumping out of the tree and landing on the ground, or are they just ground stomping to warn people? But I've heard it a lot, and that's what it sounds like somebody picked up a bowling ball and just dropped it on the ground.
Yeah, and it's a dead weight sound, almost. It's I don't know, that's what it sounds, because it's such a big sound, you know what I mean? It's that you don't expect, it's just, because people don't make that sound. I don't even think if I fell out of a tree from 14 foot, if I just fell and dead fell, I don't think I'd be able to make that sound because I don't have the weight necessary to produce it. And especially for the way it lands, it's such a pointed, it landed in a way that it's like it's been doing it the whole of its life, the way it was able to bound up. I mean, the power. And, you know, you think of anything falling, even in proportion, like if you jump off a stage, which is this high, we put it in proportion to how tall we are. If you jump off a stage this high, your knees are going to feel that shock. Your muscles are going to feel that shock. I mean, as a literal shock, it's going to take a second for you to bound back up. Any person, it would naturally. And so proportionately, you know, to put it coming out of a tree like that, to have such a graceful and huge leap, like it was like it was on a swimming board, a springboard. It just was up and gone. Like I said, and it did take it long because it put the trees at its back. Yeah. It was, I mean, like 2 bounds, and the trees were at its back, and these thickets, these are old hardwoods, and it was, you couldn't see it, but you could hear it at that point.
Yeah. So it's almost like it landed on a trampoline. Just as soon as it hit, it bounced back up.
It was, yeah. It had an agenda, and its agenda was to be gone. But like I said, it was like this trail. It was 40 foot from the trail.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. And could you hear it whenever it was moving through the woods?
Yes, you could hear it for a ways. And then my daughter's, Mommy, what is that? You know what I mean? So after that, you kind of lose it after that shock for a minute, you know, and my ex-husband was like, did you just see that? You know, so we had that kind of excitement going on. So I don't know how far it crashed, because I do remember that, you know, it was that, you know, at the one hand, it was like, what do we do? Do we just, you know, most people, I guess, would go home, but I was like, well, I got a machete. We're going to go ahead and get the firewood, and it ran from us, so we're okay, you know, but it didn't scream at us. It didn't throw anything at us. It didn't in any way do any of that, but because it was, I mean, probably I maybe outnumbered, you know what I mean, or we weren't threatening it, and it had plenty of woods to go in. I don't know. It wasn't like the other encounter I had. That one I had things thrown at me. That one was a threatening encounter. Yeah. This one wasn't. It ran from us.
Did you end up staying the night here after you had that encounter, or did you guys just hang out for a few hours?
We just hung out for a few hours, cooked dinner.
Yeah.
So.
You didn't hear any wood knocks or smell anything strange after that?
No, because this was, like I said, this was in the broad daylight. This was like 3, 4 o'clock probably, because it was this time of year, so it was before it got dark. That's why we're going to go ahead, and we were getting wood and stuff, because I was going to, you know, make dinner at the campfire. And like I said, this wasn't during the nighttime, and it was only one You know what I mean? Like, whether there were more back there, I don't know. But it was clearly threatened enough that it ran. Or it felt like it was outnumbered and it ran, or didn't have any reason to do us harm and it ran. It didn't in any way, you know what I mean, try to aggress us in any way. And we didn't do the same for it. I didn't even follow it into the woods. I didn't want to go in the woods. I stayed on the trail.
Yeah.
You'd be, well,
this is a good area. It's a conservation area. There's a waterway right behind you, and you mentioned that there's cave systems here.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a huge bluff that goes forever and ever. And there's so much, I mean, miles and miles and miles and miles and miles back here. And there's this giant bluff that sits and abuts some of this back here. And then, like I said, there's lots of woods area back here, tons of it. So that runs from one conservation into another. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right, so was that your first experience? Or
That was my second.
Okay, that was your second one. So tell me about the first experience that you had.
Okay, so the very first experience that I had, I was camping. I had a tent out. And it was just a little bitty tent, a 2-person. And I had my dog with me. Well, my ex-husband had put his, we had him on one of those airplane type leads, like, you know, you can buy at Walmart for St. Bernard, on the front wheel, because you put it through the car. And he put him on that so that he wouldn't, you know, run off, or if other people came to the campsite, you know, we didn't, you know, that way it just wouldn't be a problem. And so it was probably right around 2 o'clock in the morning or so, because we were watching a movie on the phone and just getting ready to go to sleep. And the dog kept kind of sitting in on the tent. Like, he literally was leaning so hard on the tent that he was starting to collapse part of it down, sitting on the front of it, which was strange for him. You know, he was really good about camping. He loved going. He loved out of doors at all, anywhere, because he was a high energy dog. He was a Great Dane Siberian Husky, and he was every bit of 120 pounds at 8 months old. He was huge. And so he was doing this and this behavior. So we just turned everything off to lay down, and suddenly I do mean suddenly, wasn't even paying attention enough to notice, because like I said, we had the phone going, watching a movie, to listen like any woodsman does, to see if the night creatures have went silent, you know, and things like that. It's just, we'd laid down, hadn't even went to sleep yet, probably wasn't even a couple of minutes since turning off the phone, and this scream. And I say scream, it sounded like an air raid siren that you would hear like in a World War II movie. Kind of like that, and it worked itself up and louder and deeper and louder and deeper. And I mean, we both had bolted up at this point. And I'm looking at him and he's looking at me. And it had to have been every bit of a 30, 45 second scream. And it never lost power, it never waned. And the sound of it sounded like it was only 30 feet from us, if that. Because we were close to the edge of a wood line too. And it was probably only about 7, 8 miles from here as crow flies. And it was a rib cage. I mean, it rattled my insides. And then the louder it got, its voice broke. And right at the end of its scream, and it kind of wound down like an air raid siren, but there was so much power in it. It was a high-pitched scream and a low-pitched growl at the same time, with like several tones in between. When it finally stopped, it echoed and it echoed and it echoed. And my ex-husband says, "What was that?" And I said, "I don't know. Could be a panther. Get in the car." You know, that was my first thing, because I wasn't necessarily. It's my first time. I didn't believe in Sasquatch. If somebody asked me if Bigfoot's real, I'd be like, no. And so to hear it, I didn't know what it was. So we jumped in the car, and I'm like, "Get out and get the dog," because he'd had it tied to the front of my brand new car, the wheel. And he's like, "I'm not getting out." So it was on my side, and I got out of the car, unleashed the dog, and the dog was standing. Like I said, this is a big dog, not easily put down by it. He wouldn't, if I wholeheartedly believe, if it would have been anything else, he would have reacted to the challenge with growls, you know, that ferocious nature of a big dog that's an alpha. And he didn't. He was trying to defend me, he put himself in front of me, but his tail was between his legs and he was urinating himself and he was trying to growl. He was in a sheer state of terror. So when I got him undone and I put him in the back of the car, and he had his tail tucked for a long time, I turned the lights on in the car, started the car, and I immediately kind of started driving around the campsite. I wasn't going to leave all my stuff because we left everything in the tent, but at the same time, we're at least mobile. We got the lights going all the way around us. You know, I felt a little bit safer. So I'm going through YouTube because I'm only going about 2 miles an hour. And I'm like, could it be a vixen? You know, like, what does it sound like? And because I don't believe in Bigfoot. And I'm like, no. I'm like, it's because it's just a little short yap, you know, or a scream. It's short. And then I'm like, panther. And then I'm like, this wasn't a panther. It didn't sound like, it wasn't that growly. It wasn't like that. This was, oh man, it was visceral. And then from that, I was reading comments. I'm like, what was this thing? What did I just hear? It wasn't a bear growl because it screamed at the same time it was growled. And I ended up finding Sasquatch. I mean, comment after comment was like, because people were trying to find a sound that they'd heard or something like that. So I ended up on Sasquatch sounds. And this one, the sound that I heard was, it said, I was like angry Sasquatch in Canada. And it sounded so similar that it was one of those kind of life-changing moments of what did just happen, what encounter did I just have? And so I had this Bose surround in my car, you know, the Bose, the good speakers. So I turned that thing up. I mean, it's the kind you could hear coming from 2-3 miles away, and I turned up that Sasquatch call. All of a sudden, stuff started coming at my car, and I had the dog was in the back seat, and it was a rock or something that hit the back side of it because it put a little dent in it. And I drove around the campsite all night long after this, because at this point I was also kind of on a mission where in the morning I wanted to see where this thing was standing. And so there was a little camp, there was ashes where somebody had a fire or they'd emptied out ashes from something, or where they cleared a pit and took it over. And I kind of hunted down. It was just starting to sprinkle, and at first light. And at the edge of these ashes was a print, and you could tell it was fresh because the color of the ashes were two separate colors. There was a dark underlayer from where it had stepped in it that were, you know, ridged up around the light color. Mm-hmm. And each toe, kind of rounded, was in the imprint in the ashes. And it was only about this much of the footprint, but it was every bit of this wide. Every bit of this wide, and about this much of the footprint. And because I stood there and I called my ex-husband, and I'm like, whoa, you know. And so then, of course, you know, we told family and stuff about it, but it was a surreal experience to realize that our existence in this world is so small that we're as arrogant to think, well, no, this thing can't exist, even though all these people have ever seen it, you know. And at that point, I hadn't seen it, but I have to tell you, between the two encounters, the one where it ran and I saw it with my own eyes did not even quantify on the level of fear as that was screaming. It was after food, and that dog was food. And you know, it had it's like we were in the way, or we were in its, not even necessarily its territory. That was a furious and ferocious scream. And I realized when I got out of that car to unhook that dog, the reason he was standing in front of me growling like that is because it was still there. He was protecting me. And I mean, he was urinating himself and his tail was tucked, but he wasn't just acting that way because he wasn't scratching at the car. That thing was still there. And I was so close to something that, and I mean, I didn't see this thing, but the size of its footprint, the thing that fell out of the tree, or that landed out of the tree, could not have come in close into sheer size of what this one was. Just by, if it's slender nature, if it was proportionate in its foot, this monster, just its standing weight, put this imprint, but it was so wide, and the sound that it made was so massive that, and it produced a fear that I've never experienced in my life, before that or after. And that was the very first, and it was about 2 or 3 months after that I'd seen the slim rangy one here where we're at right now. Yeah. So, but that was the very first experience that I ever had with anything that kind. Like, I denied it up to the point of, like, I had to accept that was the sound that I heard because I'd found all these videos with similar sounds, that no other animal on the face of the earth can make the sound. Yeah. No human can make it.
So it sounded like a siren?
Kind of. It started off like an air raid siren, or like a rooster crow's, you know, that kind of gurgly sound, the high-pitched gurgly sound. It started out like that, and it grew. And as it grew, it started to growl with that same low bass and high screamy sound at the same time. And it wasn't like a short blast of a sound. Like, this thing worked its volume up until it was done. And it wasn't a short scream. It wasn't like a growl, like, "Rrr." I mean, it was intentional. It was a very intentional yell. It was somewhere between a warning and a guttural. thing, and also a threat, because you could feel it. You could feel it, and it was worse than blood curdling. It was a bone rattling. It was a bone rattling yell. But that was terrifying.
Yeah, and you think it was after the Siberian Husky / Great Dane?
Yeah, the Dansky. I think that had to be because he was still a pup as far as pups went. He was only about 8 months old, but he was big. He had all the size of the Great Dane. You know what I mean? But he had that strength of the Husky, and he was a little bit of a surly dog. You know, he was stubborn. He was obstinate, but he was alpha. You know, he wasn't a meek dog, so to speak. But I never seen him behave or react. And it's not necessarily that he was mean to other animals. It's just that, you know, he wouldn't stand down. And I sincerely believe that if it had been any other animal on the face of this earth, he would have reacted in a like manner. Challenge me, I'll challenge you. But this one, he did not. This one, whatever this was to him, it was unfamiliar, unknown, and his nature didn't know even how to handle it other than to cow, to hope it didn't kill him. Because, I mean, that's... well, I guess his nature did know how to handle it. His nature was, you know what I mean, not to antagonize it. It was not even to play dead. I mean, he you know, like some dogs will play dead with something if it's too terrified. Like, you know, he didn't. He was in a sheer state of terror. And the only thing that kept me, I think, from being that much was that I was trying to protect him, you know, as much as he was, because I'd opened up that back door. I was afraid to turn my back on this thing. Just instinctually, I was afraid to turn my back to even get in the car to open the door, because I kept looking out with having my lights on, looking out to where I'd heard it to try to get the dog in, because I just didn't want to turn my back, you know, and so I kept my eyes out where it was so the dog could run in the car and slam the door, and then I got in, and there was relief in that, because being exposed like that, it was terror. That was terror.
Oh, I bet. And whenever you played that sound that you found, it started throwing rocks?
Yeah, it threw, there was a couple branches hit the car, and they didn't fall down from a campsite, like from a wind blow. I mean, it was like they came from, the wind had picked up at that point. I guess because it started to sprinkle in the morning, but the way the dog reacted, I mean, he was like dodging and trying to get down, because he was up in the window up at that point. He was looking out the back window with his tail stuck between his legs. And like he was terrified still. But the one that hit like the side of the car came out of the woods, and it was like a rock or something, because it put a little indentation there in the car. And I mean, it was intentional. And like I said, it was dark of the night, and I was on YouTube trying to find it, and the fact that it reacted when I turned up the speaker to play that same sound back at it, you know what I mean? It was a terrifying experience, because I don't know how long it was there, I don't know how long I do know that it for the dog, I think, to still be having his legs tucked up, or his tail tucked up between his legs, you know, and looking and cowering down in the back seat like he was, because something came at the back glass too. It kind of bounced off the trunk, and I think that it was still there, and he knew that, because he's an animal, probably see better at night. But I know for certain when he was standing there, when I got out of the car to let him in, he wasn't scratching at the door. He wouldn't turn his back on it either. That animal instinct, you know what I mean? Not to turn your back, like when something wants to chase you, or if you turn your back, you know what I mean? Then, but that instinct in us, that to keep it in our line of sight, is that, you know, that was at the fore, with me and the dog. So it was a truly singular experience that I hope to never have again, ever.
Yeah, absolutely. And that shows intelligence, and I don't think a mountain lion could throw rocks like that, or a bear, or any known creature. It had to have been encrypted.
Yeah, and then seeing the footprint, but just the sound. There's no animal there is nothing of this other than that could possibly, it's just because the size of it. Also, the power in its vocals and the power in its lungs. And it's a sound that, buddy, that thing was, it had the might, and, you know, if might makes right, it was going to do what it wanted to. And I believe if it would have been just my ex-husband and the dog, or myself or the dog, that I don't know if we would have survived. If it would have just been one person.
Yeah. So you got a dark feeling like it had bad intentions.
Oh, absolutely. It was, because it wasn't like this encounter. I didn't feel threatened. I didn't feel I was leery because it was unfamiliar, but I didn't feel that sense of threat, like being stalked, intent. But this first one, I did. That something was so close to us, and this furious yell that it had let out. You know, it wanted us to know that it was there. It wanted to intimidate. You know, I don't know if maybe, but it's because it's an intelligent creature. Clearly, or there, you know what I mean? There would be more taxidermied. You know, they're intelligent creatures. So, like any other creature, you know, some have certain intents and some have others. And you know, especially something, you know, like an alpha or whatnot. Maybe this one was a juvenile, or maybe it was just on the cusp of, you know, that adult age. I don't know. I can't even begin to fathom. I could think about it all day long, but it'd all be just, you know, kind of guessing. But it was terrifying is what that one was.
Yeah.
And that was about 2-3 months before we saw this one, if that. So in the same kind of local area.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
And how far away was the creature from you whenever it screamed?
Probably about 30 feet.
Okay, so
Probably,
pretty close.
oh yeah, it was extreme. It was standing like there's a little road that's like in a teardrop shape around the campgrounds. The campgrounds are just little places set inside of the teardrop shape that comes out. And it was standing at the edge of the road. Just at I mean, it might have come closer, but that's as far as I could track it. Because like I said, we were in the tent, and the dog was pushing up to the tent. He was sitting on the tent because I kept pushing him with my feet, like, man, get off the tent, you know? And it didn't occur to me because we weren't listening. We were watching a movie.
Yeah.
We were the only people there, just us, just the dog. And so that experience actually taught me to be a lot more aware, because I wouldn't have been afraid of necessarily a bear or even a panther or anything like that, especially with a dog and 2 people. You know, it's because at that point they're looking for something that's like an easier meal, or a bobcat or whatever, and there's plenty of that out there, you know. But I don't know, this thing, this was much different. It didn't want to run away from us. It didn't want to run away from us, and there's the problem. It didn't want to run away from us. It wanted us to run from it. You know, it wanted something that we had there, whether it be the food, whether it be in the tent, well, you know, we just brought, you know, I mean, probably some snacks, I don't even remember, or whether it was the dog, both, you know, whatever it was, it was willing. You know what I mean? Like that scream said, I'm here, you know it, and I did this intentionally. So what does that say about something that does that? It's not afraid. And I was. So I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it definitely wasn't afraid, and it wanted you to know that it was there. And the fact that your dog was freaking out, you know, and this is a big dog, an alpha.
Yeah.
You know, that says a lot.
Yeah.
Especially if he peed himself and was kind of, you said he was kind of leaning towards the tent.
He was sitting on the tent. He was trying to push his way into the tent. Like he was starting to push, because it's just the kind that, like, you know, it's about yay high, and it had the 2 crisscross poles, which is, I mean, it was literally, it was like a stand up and walk around tent. It was like, you get it, and mosquitoes stay off your tent, you know?
Yeah.
And the dog he was trying to sit on the tent, like he was was pushing so far against it that he was starting to unstake it, you know? And he wanted in, he felt unsafe, is what it was. But I thought, you know, it's just that, you know, because he likes sleeping by mommy, you know, that's kind of what I attribute it to. Because, like I said, if I would have had that phone off, I would have heard this creature. I think something that big, you can't, I mean, but I guess they can be silent when they want to be. But the fact that it just didn't care, but I would have at least heard the night creatures go silent, even at its approach, you know, because, you know, any woodsman knows that you listen to everything in your surroundings. And even if you don't hear the predator, once you hear the night creatures go silent and the night bugs, the predator's there, you know, because you can hear. That's why the woods seem eerie to people who aren't familiar with them when they're quiet. And they're usually the reason that the woods are quiet, because, you know, they're the foreign object in them. But
did you get a sense that there was more than just one?
No, whether there was or not, I don't know, which may have spurred on its, you know what I mean, audacity. You know what I mean? I guess that's the way to look at it. I don't know. Or if it was just one that was so big, or knew that it had You know what I mean? It was because this, like I said, this dog's a baby looking compared to my dog was twice his height. I mean, he was big on his hind legs. He stood taller than me almost. He was huge, and
So what was that, like August, September?
that's probably around September. Probably around September. It was right when the leaves were kind of just starting to trickle off the trees, and it was right around in that time. It wasn't late in the fall yet. And it was probably about this time, because there was no leaves on the tree, when we had seen the dark colored one. And that was in the daytime. This was in the dark hours of the night. Like I said, we were just getting ready, because we didn't even get there to go camping until late. And so watched a movie, had something to eat, watched a movie, and then just getting ready to lay down and go to sleep. And then we hear this scream. And that was, like I said, it was a very singular experience. And even after I had found, the sound of what it was, I still had that hard time in my mind accepting that this is what I just heard. And a part of me is like, man, I wish I'd have thought to grab my phone. But that terror of that's the last thing you're going to think of, is to grab your phone. Well, this is a neat noise, I'm going to record it. You know what I mean? It's like,
It doesn't register, and even if it does click, like your mind tries to tell you that's not what it was, but then you think about the experience, and it's like, well, I can't figure out, any animal or person that would do that.
And to think that there's something that's bipedal, like us, that's that huge and clever, and to think of something that huge with that much power, and able to disguise, to blend. To watch from afar and see everything we're doing with ill intent. You know what I mean? It feels like it's on the border between an animal instinct, but also at the same time, like that, oh man, most predators or any kind, if you walk up on a bear, it growls because you walked up on it. You know what I mean? It doesn't walk up on you and start growling unless it's going to eat you. And so that was why that was scary,
Oh yeah.
So
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
And how far out of town is that place? I mean, is it out in the pretty far out in the country?
I mean, it's a good ways out in the country. As a crow flies, it's probably, 7 to 10 miles from here. But if you get on the highway, I think it's like 14 miles drive, 12, 14 miles, something like that. But this is all kind of the same area and close to the same county. So, because it's right on the line.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I keep getting drawn to the same areas. When we were going down this highway, I'm like, yep, this is where I make a lot of my films at. This is where I take a lot of reports at.
Yeah.
And there's so many different roads and highways and towns and cities in Missouri that, there's certainly something to it if I keep getting drawn to the same areas.
Yeah. Well, and they're big. I mean, you got to think legs like that. They cover a lot of ground. I mean, they don't get in a car. They don't, the lungs, the stamina, everything about them, if they want to make territory between here and there, it's nothing. It's nothing.
Yeah.
So.
And that's research to me, if these encounters and experiences keep happening in the same area, because a lot of people say there's no proof, that's data for me right there.
Oh, absolutely. Because like I said, I wouldn't go out of my way to argue with somebody. If somebody's like, I've seen Sasquatch, I'd listen, but as far as for me, it's like, I don't know, you seen a bear, you know what I mean? Or your eyes were tricking you. I wouldn't say it to him, but in my head, I was so highly skeptical. Like,
it's a natural way to think, because, we tend to think that we know everything that there is out there, and we have technology. There's trail cameras. People say everywhere, but they're not everywhere. There's just so much woods that you can't cover every square foot.
Absolutely.
And they say there's people everywhere. When I go to conservation areas, sometimes we see one person, or a lot of times we don't even pass anyone on the whole way down and don't see anyone in the area. And we're talking about vast areas, so there's not people everywhere,
So I say out here, like between you can go out, there's places in the Mark Twain National Forest, which are, 12, 13, 14 miles the other direction, where my brother had some encounters there. Or his friends did out camping, but you could travel 4 counties on those old back roads and still be in the same national forest. It's huge. There's no way people could track every square foot of it to know what's going on there. They just can't. And these things are natural woodsmen, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of get the feeling we're being watched out here. I always say that, but I mean, it's so quiet.
Those thick woods back there. It's hard because our hearing, I hear the river behind me right now, and it's not like an animal's hearing, but this will mask a lot of sounds. here in that river. You know, that's what the ear's going to attune to. And then when you look out, you can't see as far as the eye can see because all you see is those hardwoods and that cedar thicket, and it's black. It's eerie because it's black.
Now, that area where you heard the vocalization and had the rocks thrown, was there a creek or a river nearby?
Lake.
A lake? Okay.
Yeah, it was on a lake. And like I said, you could hear it. It echoed and echoed and echoed. I mean, it's still echoing through my memories. That's how that sound, it just, I've never heard anything like it. By the ear, since, after, before, and I hope I never do again.
Yeah. Has this encounter strengthened your faith with like God and, you know, mysteries of the universe and things that other people have talked about as far as like, oh, I had paranormal encounters or UFOs, you know, showed up. Do you feel more open to all that now?
Well, I've came to God in a whole other way. But my relationship with God, you know, I actually was thinking I wasn't a believer till I saw it with my own eyes, and I was thinking, blessed are those who walk by faith and not by sight. You know, we walk by faith and not by sight. And boy, I was certainly a skeptic, but I think about things like that. I'm like, well, if they're here, that means they were on the ark. It's like, and they're here. Yeah. So, you know,
they were on the ark, or they were part of what was going on for the reason of the flood, as far as the giants and.
I believe that, well, you know, if God says Noah, get on the boat, everything's going, everything. If it don't swim in the sea, and even then we're gonna put some under the ground, you know. If it don't swim in the sea, it's going. Everything that walks this earth, you know, I give you 2 of everything you're gonna need this whole earth. Get on the ark, you know, and how it took him that long. God gave him every tree he needed, and he gave him plans, and master shipmen they became, you know, and so. It's kind of a neat thing to think about too, because I mean they were master shipbuilders, and we think that this land was just discovered. It couldn't have been. Native Americans got over here, because guess what? There was no humanity over here either. So one of Noah's sons or Noah's son's sons had to sail this way, but they had to have been on that ark. That had to have been a pair that was sent there. There's no other way about it, because everything else was wiped off, you know. So. It ain't gonna swim for no 40 days, and then it ain't gonna eat either, you know. So.
Yeah, the sea creatures had it made when that happened, because they didn't have to worry about anything.
Well, and even some of those that they find like the fossils of, because they find them all over the world. Well, that would be why the world was flooded. So everything got moved and shifted from here to there, and they find them in certain sediment that dates back exactly when, you know, the Bible states this is what happened. Yeah. Which I think is so neat, because, you know, God's like that. Like elephants, when there's a tsunami, they'll head uphill. Well, why do you think that is? Because there was a flood coming. I bet you Noah's Ark was on top of a hill, you know, that it's built into them. Oh, yeah. So it's just, they had to have been on the ark. Yeah. So,
that's
but
a
it
good
makes
explanation.
Sense for them to be, you know, I mean, as far as being in the wild, though, it makes sense that a lot of sightings, like, because I did read about it for a little bit, like campgrounds. More people seem to see them at campgrounds than anything else. Well, because people leave behind food, or there's food out. It's not, you know what I mean? Or, you know, it's easy availability.
Yeah, campers, hunters, and fishermen, and also people driving on the road. Those seem to be the most people that have the encounters.
Because you really just look out in your backyard and see Bigfoot. You know, you might see a bear, but it's outdoorsmen, because the more you're out in something, you know, like reading the Bible. The more you read the Bible, the more the word makes sense to you, the more it grows in you, and the more you change. Well, the more you're outdoors, the more you're in nature, the more you're going to see and recognize of nature, and the different signs of things that are in nature too. Because, you know, you start kind of vibing with, you know, the environment and things that are going on. So it makes sense that people who are outdoorsmen would notice these things more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you can go out in the woods your whole life and never see anything, but at the same time, you know, if you want to see one, you just got to be out there.
That's exactly it. You know, you could probably hunt your whole life. I wasn't hunting Bigfoot. I came here to camp. I wasn't hunting Bigfoot. You know, I went there to camp. I didn't want to be hunted by Bigfoot either. That's what it felt like. And that felt like I was being cornered as prey. And boy, there's nothing. That's a terrible feeling, to feel like you're prey. And that encounter, I felt like I was prey. Like I was being sized up as potential food, you know, prey, something to be gotten rid of, or an obstacle in the way of the goal, which may have been the dog, because he was tethered. He couldn't run. He was chained to a cable, and that was very, like I said, very singular experience, very terrifying experience, and one I hope to never have again. I don't even want to see one again, because it's you can see it, realize you've seen it, watch it, and then spend the next week like, no, that's not what we saw. And it's be like, that's what you saw, and you want to, especially when you have other people who saw it with you, you kind of want to confirm it again and again and again, and then be like, my daughter be like, Mommy, you remember when we saw it? It's like, yeah. So.
Yeah, you have to come to terms with it,
Yeah.
because your brain will just try to like categorize it somewhere, and it won't be able to put it in an area.
Right, because it's
unknown.
Exactly. We're told this thing isn't real, or, and even then, it's just the unfamiliarity of seeing something that looks like a human shape. I mean, it's a little longer. Like the arms don't match. Like they're long, and its movements are very animal. But it's just the fact that it's up on its feet like us. So we want to liken it to us as far as, because some people are like, oh, it's protecting you, and Bigfoot's a good guy. No, I don't believe that for a minute. They're an animal. You know what I mean? They're either going to run at you or from you. They're an animal. And so they needed to be treated that way. Yeah. Because we don't have the knowledge of them that they have of us, and that's for sure. Or they wouldn't be watching us, and learning our patterns. So.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like you mentioned, the flood. Every ancient civilization has a flood story, and every culture around the world has a Bigfoot, story. Whether it's like the hairy man, the wild man,
dog
the skunk
man.
ape. Yeah, I mean, no matter where you go.
Or no, is it dog man? That's a different one, ain't it?
Yeah, well, that's a different cryptid, but I mean, for some reason, with the data that I've found, you find dogman sightings in the same areas that you find Bigfoot sightings.
If it's like a younger one or something. Like if it's a weird you know what I mean? Transitional phase between, well, no, their faces are longer. I've never seen a dog man. I've only heard, actually, it was his brother-in-law when he was talking about that, because you'd brought up dog man or something. But like I said, I've never, this was easily not, it was Bigfoot. This was Bigfoot. There was no two ways about it. It's Bigfoot. And so.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, Stacy, I appreciate you telling your
you.
story. You did an excellent job.
Oh, well, praise the Lord.
Yeah. I'm just blessed that you were willing to tell your story.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, Bill. So you sent me an email a while back, and I read it off on the channel. Would you tell me about that encounter that you had, that experience in Licking, Missouri?
Yep. Well, first of all, I've hunted my whole life since I was a kid. I'm 58 years old. I never believed in anything like that. When I was a kid, I hunted with my dad in the middle of the night with plot hounds. We'd coon hunt in southern Illinois, and I've been in the woods my whole life, hunted and fished. It's one of my favorite things to do. And I'd go down to Texas County. My mom and stepdad and family down there, and I've hunted my whole life down there. And my brother-in-law, Bob, he would talk about Bigfoot out there, and I used to laugh at him. You're crazy, you're nuts, man. What are you doing? Cut it out. And he went on, he used to tell me that stuff all the time. I never would believe him. I thought he was crazy. And I'd laugh, and just whatever. Well, like I said, we was in between homes. We were waiting for an apartment here. And so we was camping for like a year and a half. And the one place we camped on the Big Piney River there, just outside of Licking. And after we was there for a little while, we noticed, well, first I noticed that my dog, when he was a pup, man, all of a sudden he got, just out of the blue, he played dead, and he'd puke up bowel and just lay there like dead. And I was like, what's wrong with my dog, man? And then he was so small he couldn't get in the truck, He went in the truck and went to hide. He'd get up under the seat and just hide and shake. I thought, what the hell's wrong with him? Well, it turned out it was hogs. There was a lot of hogs. The hogs didn't bother me too much, And we'd leave there and camp somewhere else and come back. After a couple of days, hogs come in. They didn't bother me too much, If they got too close, I had the AR-12, And last night we was there, and I said, we're done. Again, the hogs came in, had to be on top of the truck. I had the AR-12 because if it came close enough, I was gonna shoot one, to be honest with you, you know. And it got dark, and just as the sun went down, it was so dark you can't see nothing. And where we was camped on a big piney, there's like little ravines back in the woods, you know. And that's where the hogs always came up from. And I heard the hog, boy, they was coming in, and it was coming in a little different this time, you know. And they didn't stick around this time, and they kept going. And I could smell. The only way I can explain this is, I had a member in my family that just, I don't know why, he would never bathe, never shower. He had a stench to him, and a bad stench. It was that exact same smell times 10. It was bad, really bad. And I thought, my God, man, what, gross. And then I never seen it. But I heard just inside the woods where I couldn't see in the ravine, the loudest. It started out kind of quiet, and then got really loud, high pitched, and then down to like a rumble. And my truck, my camper was metal, and we were sitting on top of the truck, and it was so loud that I could feel the truck. I could feel the voice of the Sasquatch that was making that noise. And that thing was mad, extremely mad. It scared me. It did. People on your video thought that, you know, maybe that Sasquatch was saving us from the hogs. No, that was not what I was trying to say. He was after the hogs, and he didn't want us there either. He wanted us out of there. And then he started throwing stuff. Now I've never had nothing in the woods middle of the night be thrown at me. I never heard nothing like that. I've heard cougars in the middle of the night, they'll scare you. It sounds like a woman being tortured in the woods. If you ever heard a cougar in the woods, you know. I've seen black bears here, cougars, I've heard cougars. I've heard everything in the areas in Missouri woods that you could hear. I've never heard nothing like that. I've never heard as loud as that was, and never had anything thrown at me in the truck. And when it started throwing stuff at the truck, it was time to go. And we got in the cab of the truck, and I went up the road there. A guy I know, they call him Red Dog, his name's Larry. And I was so scared. I pulled in and he come out like, what you guys, why are you here in the middle of the night? I didn't want to tell him because I didn't know what, my brain was scattered. And he said, well, just come in and sleep here tonight. And we went and slept there tonight, and we didn't go back after that. Before that, the hogs, we'd go back there, camp all the time. You know, we'd leave, go camp somewhere else, come back. But after that night, what I heard, and stuff being thrown at the truck, I didn't want nothing to do with that at all. It was scary. It did not want us there.
Yeah.
Did not want us there.
What did the scream sound like? What can you compare it to? Was it like a growl or like a high pitch?
It started out more quiet, and then the louder it went real high pitched, and then it dropped to a growl, and long growl, like 30 seconds, long. And I've never heard nothing like that, never. And it was so loud. Like I said, we was on top of the truck, and the camper I had was steel. It was, you know, it was like a work camper, and you could feel the truck, a little vibration when that thing was growling. Now, No, I'm out of here. I just,
Yeah. So Stacy was telling me this earlier. You guys were in the tent, correct?
when the hogs came, we was in tents before, yeah.
Yeah. And then she said she could see lightning, and she saw like a figure moving through the camp, and she saw like tusks, like a big animal.
Yeah, that was a big hog. That was a huge hog, biggest hog I've ever seen.
And then she saw little piglets.
I've seen, you know, 100-pounders, 200-pounders. This hog was a beast. It was a big one.
And it had little ones.
Yeah, I had little ones.
Okay.
It was a big sow.
And in the story and what you told me earlier, they were like communicating back and forth. Like,
people can believe me or not. I'm telling you what, hogs are smart, very smart. These hogs, they communicate with each other because when the dog, wherever he just went, when he was little, the hogs were trying to get to him. They wanted to kill my dog, and so we had him in a tent. He was in the corner, and the sun went down, and the hogs were coming in, and there was a hog, and it was putting his nose against the tent, you know, poking his nose and sniffing right to the dog. Mm-hmm. And Stacy, she said, oh man, she said, I'm gonna hit this hog. And before I could tell her, don't hit that hog, because she was gonna bust him in the nose because his nose was pumping. She took her hand like this and said, bop, and hit that hog right in the nose through the tent. And that hog went to squealing. I said, oh man, let's go, get on the truck. I grabbed the dog, and me and her, and we got on top of the truck, and them hogs tore the tent up. They came in that tent, ripped that tent up. And I don't believe the conservation I don't believe in one bit. What I have seen, they say that you shoot at a hog and it'll run 2 counties away. No, it won't. That hog will go get his buddies and he'll come back. I'm telling you right now, I've seen it. I don't care what anybody says. I don't believe the conservation. I've seen it with my own eyes. Mm-hmm. You mess with a hog, he's coming back and he's gonna have more hogs with him. Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it more than once.
That's frightening. And whenever it communicated, you could hear them snorting. And
yeah, they would make little noises, and they would also, like, you know, when you go call your dog, them hogs will do that. The hogs will imitate a dog to try to call your dog into them to kill your dog. I seen it. I seen it with my own eyes.
Yeah.
But like I said, the hogs don't bother me. I mean, they are dangerous, but you know, I got guns for that. But what I heard, that wasn't no hog. And it was after the hogs. And it scared the hogs, and the hogs were hightailing it past us. They wasn't hanging around. Mm. And that thing, I've never heard nothing like it. I've never heard a growl like that before in my life. I never had nothing thrown at me in the middle of the night while I'm sitting on top of my truck.
Yeah. Was it throwing rocks or?
It was throwing rocks and sticks. Hit the truck, ping, ping, ping. I said, no, we're out of here. We're gone. I'm not messing with this. I don't know what it is. I don't care. I'm out of here. It scared me.
Yeah, that's frightening. And did the creature ever kill a hog?
No, I was told by somebody that a hog, if Bigfoot wanted to, he could take a hog and hit it against a tree and throw it over his back. Somehow that was said that I seen that. No, I did not see that.
I'm sorry if I misrepresented.
Yeah, I did not say I seen that. Mm-hmm. That's what I was told, that, you know, Bigfoot could do that.
Right.
Yeah, I believe he could. I believe he could, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And some of the people down there that I've talked to, they said that's what they told me. Mm-hmm. And they said that the hogs, that Bigfoot controls the hogs there. They know Bigfoot's there, and kind of surprised that we've seen it and we talked about it, and hush hush.
Yeah.
What do you mean hush hush? You couldn't have told me this before we're camping down here? Mm-hmm. Well, I probably wouldn't have believed him anyway.
So the people that lived around there knew about these creatures?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've taken a lot of reports from that area.
Absolutely.
It's a hot spot for Bigfoot in Missouri.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder, maybe the reason conservation doesn't want people to shoot hogs is so these cryptids have a food source and they don't target people, kids, dogs. That's just a theory. I don't know.
I don't know. They set out hog traps. I don't know. And from my understanding, once they set up hog traps, they catch a few hogs, then all of a sudden they can't catch hogs because the hogs are smart. They know, hey, our family got caught in a trap here. Maybe we shouldn't go in that trap.
Yeah.
Hogs are smart. They're very smart.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever had any other experiences out there in the forest with Bigfoot?
Never have.
So after this experience with the hogs and the Sasquatch, you contacted Bob, who's been on my channel before, and you told him you're right.
Yeah, I did. And he laughed. He said, I told you.
Yeah.
I thought he was full of crap. He's just feeding me a line, whatever. And then come to find out after I talked to a few people down there, yeah, he's down there and they know about it and they leave him alone and he controls the hogs. Really?
Yeah. Bigfoot controls the hog population.
Yeah, that's what I was told, man. I never believed in anything like this at all. I thought he was crazy. My brother-in-law is full of, what are you talking about? Yeah, turns out. Yeah, and then, like I was telling you before, there was a lady down there named Christy, and her son, we called him Crazy George. She owned Hazelton Springs for years. She had a trout farm there, and she, believe it or not, she had a fully automatic M16. Fact, it was full, and I used to hunt back there at Hazelton Springs with George and my uncles, and that lady would scare me, man. She was from Romania. It's just something about her. She reminded me of like a witch or something, man. She was just a scary woman, man. But I used to love hunting there at Hazelton Springs, and she would always talk about the wolf man's around, the wolf man. She knew the days that the wolf man was out, and she would make these necklaces for my stepdad Bob, and tell him, you gotta wear them, the wolf man's out tonight. And he would say to me, man, she's just crazy. I have to put it on to keep her happy. Turns out she wasn't so crazy after all. Maybe she was telling the truth down there on the Big Piney River between Paddy Creek and Choctaw Road.
Yeah, that police officer this past year, he told me that there's been several dogman sightings out there. I mean, we can't get anyone to openly speak about it, but apparently there's a lot of werewolf sightings or dogman sightings.
Well, Christy used to talk about it all the time. I know.
That's that same area.
Her son ended up committing suicide, and after that, she sold Hazelton Springs. I'm not sure she sold it to Anheuser-Busch or some big watering plant or to bottle water or something. Sold it for like $1 million. And she moved, from my understanding, out to Las Vegas. But she wasn't scared to talk about it. And I always thought she was just crazy, because I'd go over there hunting with George and Jimmy and Terry, and she sit there and right there talk about, y'all be careful, man. The wolf man's out there. Right? Be in here at dark, because don't be out there at night. Wolf man, he's here. But what is she talking about? Yeah, well, what I heard, I didn't see nothing, but from what I heard, I never heard nothing like that before in my life, and it scared me. And like I said, I'm 58. I've been in the woods all my life, hunted all my life. And I've been in the woods middle of the night, and nothing really scared me at all. That did. Whatever it was after them hogs. And came up on us. They didn't want us there either. Yeah. Did not want us there. And it meant it too.
Literally scared the crap out of your dog. Do you think he was kind of playing dead? Or do you think he was like...
My dog was acting like he was dead. I never seen nothing like that in my life. The dog knew that the hogs were coming for him before I even knew seen, heard, or any of them. He just fell over. He didn't puke bow all the way out the bow and just lay there. Stacy had to go in a briar patch full of stickers to get him out of there because he just laid dead. So we knew the hogs were coming.
Yeah, that's
He would either do that or he'd run to the truck and do everything he could to get in that truck and hide.
And you said you camped there for several days. What day did they come? Like day 3, day 4? Was it day 5?
About 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
3 or 4 days after we were there. I guess with the cooking and food being, out, I guess they drew the hogs in. But that one time it drew more than hogs.
And that's what got your guys' attention, were the cooking pots being rattled around.
Yeah, I was sleeping. I was sleeping about 2 o'clock in the morning. She woke me up, shaking me. Bill, get up, get up. I said, what? It was raining, it was sprinkling a little bit, and there was barely a fire going. There's hogs everywhere. And I opened my eyes, and the whole campsite, there was hogs running around. And there was a couple little ones, and that sow, she was huge. Biggest sow I ever seen, boy. She was a monster.
About how big do you think she was?
Believe it or not, she was 500 pounds.
Really?
Huge. I've never seen, actually I have seen hogs that big. On a farm though, in Illinois. I seen hogs that were the biggest hogs I ever seen in my life, but they were on a farm.
Yeah.
And that wild hog was just big, and it was solid black, like a Russian boar, but it was just it was a monster. It was as big as them farm hogs I seen over in Illinois.
Yeah, I believe you. And I mean, hogs are kind of a cryptid creature, because there's a Monster Quest episode called, I think it's called like Hogzilla, but there's people in Texas that talk about these giant hogs, like up to like 700 pounds or more. And there's a few people that got photos, and it's just kind of unbelievable.
This one was huge. I've never seen a hog this big before, other than, like I said, on the farm in southern Illinois. But I've always seen them, 100 pounds, 150 pounds.
Yeah.
And
that's
all day
pretty
long.
big.
That one took me by surprise. That one, I locked and loaded quick.
Yeah.
Because I didn't, I'm pulling trigger.
Yeah.
So.
That's kind of like a horror story. Stacy was telling me that there was lightning that night, and whenever the light would flash, that's when she saw like the shadows of the hogs.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But that sow, she's a trophy.
Yeah. And they're still out there today.
Yeah. I mean, unless conservation went out there and threw traps up, but man, that's a lot of woods, man.
That's a lot of woods, yeah.
Yeah, 'cause from Jack Tar, we'd go down to Patty Creek, and if you go down Patty Creek, and you'll come to a T, and you make a right, and you go down there a little bit, and on the right-hand side, there's a horse camp, and you can camp there with the horses. Well, there's a trail you could take if you make that right, and you keep going, and it goes way down the holler, and off to the left, there's a bunch of fields, and big piney rivers on that side. But if you keep on going, it's like a trail. You can barely get down it with four-wheel drive. And I made a left to come up. Looked like there was a down fence, and I came in there, and the conservation had a big hog trap there too. And so there's hogs everywhere. And that Patty Creek's probably, as crow flies, 7 miles from Jack Tar, 8 miles maybe. So, and there's hogs everywhere.
Yeah.
And from my understanding, especially from Fort Leonard Wood all the way to Jack Tar now, there's been sightings.
Yeah, that's a lot of land. I mean, you can think you're going to go there and see Bigfoot, but once you get out there and see how vast it is, you think to yourself, these things could be anywhere.
Oh man,
Anywhere.
there's a lot of woods, a lot of woods.
It's mind blowing.
Yeah, and then I like over, I forget what governor it is. I can't remember the governor's name that owns all that property over if you go from Edgar Springs down.
That Spring Creek area?
Yeah, Spring Creek area. There's been sightings in there, from my understanding, and I've been all up in there too. I've never seen nothing in there, but just think, it's all woods from there all the way to where I was, Jack Tar Road.
There's been a lot of sightings on the military base, so you know for a fact the government knows about them.
Well, you know they do.
Yeah, they're not
I
talking
did my
about
basic training at Fort Leonard Wood.
it. Yeah. Did you ever hear anything while you were there?
I heard stories, but they people would laugh, and then I didn't believe it either. You know, that was what 1985 when I did basic training. I would just laugh, saying, "Yeah, whatever." But turns out, made a believer out of me.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, there's a lot of fakes, but there's too many people seeing stuff. And now they've found hair with unknown primate DNA. I just watched that. Unknown primate DNA here in the United States. We're getting bigger, we're getting bigger, we're getting bigger. We're taking down the woods. At the same time, Sasquatch population, they're breeding, getting bigger and bigger. Well, eventually we're gonna start crossing paths. Because, you know, humans, we tear down everything to build. You know, I remember when I was a kid, just outside of Arnold, Missouri, used to hunt. But where the old 55 scales were, I used to hunt that. Well, you can't now. It's suburbia. Subdivisions everywhere. So we keep taking up the woods. Woods are getting smaller. We're bound to cross paths. We're getting more and more sightings, right? So that's my thought on the idea.
No, it makes sense, and I think that's what's happening today. And also another thing that helps is the fact that there's, you know, game laws, conservation areas, national forests, where, you know, animals are able to live. Because if there wasn't any, you know, protection for wildlife, I don't think we would be seeing deer, eagles, and owls. People would just shoot them.
You know, and I love Missouri Department of Conservation. They're very good at it, and they buy land to protect for hunting and have seasons on it. And I love the conservation, the way they work here in Missouri. I don't know about other states, but Missouri Department of Conservation here, they do a very good job at it. Yeah. And I'm sure you heard Todd Standing out of Canada. All the research he's done, he's trying. What he do to the Canadian government? Tried to get a protection against him. Man, he's got some video, unbelievable videos, and people still don't believe. And what's that Survivor man?
The Discovering Bigfoot on Netflix.
Yeah,
Todd Standing and
yeah.
Les Stroud.
Yeah. Now, them are some pretty believable people out there, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, even Jeff Meldrum and Les Stroud believed Todd Standing.
Absolutely.
So,
and if you watch his videos,
yeah,
it's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
I don't know why people don't believe it. You know, it'd be just like any human. You know, we can, you know, there's black people, there's white people, there's brown people, there's people with red hair, brown hair, black hair. Why can't Sasquatch be the same way?
No, I agree.
You know, so some can have more of an ape face, some can have more of a human face.
Yeah, there's definitely variations there.
The pictures he's got, and the way they're hiding, the way he's zoomed in, that's real. You know, people believe what they want. I believe Todd Standing, 100%. Them are real videos.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You're allowed to have an opinion, and I agree with you. There's, you know, some big YouTube names that say it's a fake, but there's things that Todd Standing has mentioned, things that nobody else would know that I heard on his channel, heard him talk about, that I've experienced here in Missouri, things that only a Bigfoot researcher would know who's actually experienced real activity. Because the people that are saying that it's a hoax, I don't think they've ever seen them. I think they want to pretend like they know everything about Bigfoot, but...
Right, well, like I said, I never believed.
Yeah.
I thought people were crazy, come on, cut it out.
Yeah.
And then after my experience, I didn't have to see him. I know what I heard. And that was
like Stacey
terrifying.
said, sometimes like you can see them, but when you hear them, that's just a whole different level. You know, I claim, and I talk about it all the time on my channel, I've heard a dog man out in the woods next to my house whenever I was about 11, 12 years old. And this thing howled. It sounded just like a Hollywood werewolf call. I mean,
Really?
deep guttural. It sounded like it was being blasted through a giant PA system. That sound scares me more than the Bigfoot sightings that I had, where I actually seen Sasquatch. That sound was just like on a whole nother level, just like what you guys were talking about.
Yeah,
No human or animal could produce something that loud and guttural.
I never would have watched anything about Bigfoot, or I would have never watched any of it. But I do now. I watch it all.
I had experiences like I heard, like that sound that I heard. I've heard the Sasquatch scream. It sounds like a woman being murdered. And I know for a fact it wasn't a mountain lion because it came from like 12 feet high up in the air at nighttime right behind me. And before that, I heard like trees come crashing down. You know, a mountain lion wouldn't do that, but it's mind blowing because until you see one, you know, your mind just wants to wonder, what the heck did I experience?
Yeah,
what was that?
She's seen them. I haven't got to see one. I would love to see one.
Yeah.
But I heard him, and I've never heard nothing like that before in my life, and it was terrifying. I wanted out. I wanted out now.
So the hogs were hunting your dog and the
Yes.
food that you had at camp, but at the same time, the Sasquatch was pursuing the hogs.
That's
And
what I'm
You
thinking.
were caught in the middle of it, pretty much.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Because normally the hogs would stick around,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the camp, you know, and I'd be sitting on top of the truck because it's so dark. I'm like, where they at? And then you hit a light, and then, you know, hogs would move pretty fast. I didn't have night vision on my gun or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we go there and be like, I'm gonna get one of these hogs. I'm gonna get one, you know.
Would've been breakfast, man.
And they would hang around. This time was different.
Mm-hmm.
They came through the camp, kept going.
Yeah.
Because they were being chased by the Sasquatch. Mm-hmm. And Sasquatch seen we were there, and he did not want us there. I'm telling you right now, he did not. It was terrifying. He did not want us there at all.
Yeah.
And I do believe if we wouldn't have left,
Mm-hmm.
it might not have turned out too good.
That's probably 2 hours or more from here, but I've stood in that same spot where you had that experience at. Bob took me there, and it's a prime area. I mean, it's pristine wilderness, a lot of big pines, and it's right off the Big Piney River.
Yeah, where you guys are standing, the Big Piney's on the right.
Mm-hmm.
If you look straight ahead, right through there.
Yeah.
That's where it came from. It's got them. If you look back in there, there's a big, deep, like where water will run into the river, and it's real deep, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he was down in there.
Oh, wow.
That's where he was.
Yeah. There's kind of a bend there too. Like
Oh,
not right off the camp, but right around.
Yeah, because you can go down. We camped at the bottom part there too. You know, where you can come down that hill to the river, or if you come around this way, you can back in. You can get on that lower spot there,
Mm-hmm.
and you can park there too and camp.
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna have to go there and camp. But you're
I
gonna
would go
join me
back,
one
but
day,
I'm
man.
gonna tell you right now, I'm gonna be loaded with bear jack. I'm telling you right now, 44 mag, 308, 30-06, just in case.
That whole area.
I'm not taking a chance because this thing, it means business. If it don't want you there, get out. He's telling you, get out. Get out.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I appreciate you for sharing that encounter with me in person, and I've been waiting a long time to talk with you. I didn't think we'd ever get to talk, but when you got a hold of me and said come on down, I got excited.
Right.
This
Yeah,
is awesome.
and I wanted to make some corrections on a few of them. You know.
Yeah, I apologize if I got some things
You know,
wrong.
some people. You know, I've read some of the comments. Some people said, you know, or there was a talk about. I was reading that did Sasquatch really want to save them from hogs? No, hell no. He wanted us out because we were between him chasing his hogs.
Yeah.
That's what I gathered. He was after the hogs, and we were in between there.
Yeah.
He didn't like it.
Well, I appreciate you for clearing that up.
I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you do, man. You take the time, and you interview these people. You drive I watch you on YouTube all the time. You drive all over the place, And that takes time, it takes money, that takes, you know, a lot. And I appreciate everything you do. I really do.
Well, thank you
And
for
the truth's
that.
going to come out. And then all the people that don't believe, they find new creatures all the time, especially in South America. It's going to come out. We're dealing with something that's smart. I got a lot of time in this dog. This dog does bite work too.
He's a good dog.
Here.
Yeah, he's a real good
Spot.
baby.
My little hog killer. Hogs try to kill him. Now he hates hogs.
He's a butterfly chaser.
Freaking heartbeat now.
That's what he did when Sasquatch came. He just played dead.
Oh man,
Yeah.
as stiff as a board.
Yeah.
The hogs come in, he did that too. It was just like bad.
He was a baby, boy. He's just scared.
Are we standing in the spot?
Yeah. Well, if you come over this way
Okay.
and you look right through these trees, there's a dark cedar tree. It's probably the tallest one you can see right there. It's probably, I don't know how far out that is. What was it, about 20, 40, probably about 50 feet out. Right around in there. Like I said, it's been about 4 years ago. And I know I was right at this turn. And I don't remember if I was around this side of the cedar tree or this side of the cedar tree, but either way, you can see it. It came out from right there because all I saw was it drop. That's what got my attention was it falling, it dropping, it bounding. And because there was such a clear line of sight, there was no leaves in the tree. And like I said, it's so dark back in here in this thicket that, you know, after a couple of bounds, all you can hear, you lose sight of things quickly. All you can hear is it crashing. And I mean, and it was crashing because it was running. And then the kids started chattering and, you know, and I'm like, what did I just see? You know, and so at the same time, you know, didn't want to scare them, but also I had no idea that it was watching us. And it had to be watching us to see us, you know what I mean? It come in off the trail. And because, like I said, right here, it was this close to the trail, and we were just right over there.
Yeah.
Right over there camping, or going to camp. And so where it was between here and there, I don't know if it went from there for a place to hide, and if it was spooked, or if because it felt like it was numbered. But it showed no signs of aggression. It just kind of fell out of the tree sideways like this, and it was facing this way. And then as soon as it leapt up, it bounded, and it put its back at the trees, and all you could hear was the crashing. But I mean, it was a singular experience. It was a sing because it was on 2 feet. You know, it wasn't like it didn't even have its hands on the ground when it came out of the tree. However far it was up, I don't even know. I don't know if it was hanging on or what, but it never touched the ground with its hands. Only its feet did. It didn't even propel off the ground with its hands. Like I said, it's kind of like its body. You could see it absorb the shock and then run in one motion.
Did it jump up though after it hit the ground?
It bounded. It bounded up. Like it used that. Like its knees were bent, and it used the force. You know what I mean? In its body to push itself back up because there was strength in those legs. Because I mean, just the fluid. You know, it was an animal grace. It was an animal grace and a powerful motion at the same time. So.
Yeah, that's incredible. And we're right off trail, and the creek or the river is just right there, and then there's the parking lot. So it had to have been watching the trail.
Right there is where we were camped.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, we were a couple hundred feet from this place, so it may have even been over here, seeing what we were doing. You know.
Did you guys have food?
Yeah. I hadn't cooked it yet. We were actually gonna get firewood, and if we didn't even stay, it started getting dusky, and we're like, okay, we're gone now. And just because we had 2 little kids with us, the smallest one, she was 3, and you know, we had her in a stroller, and so that way, kind of keep an eye on her, and it's easier to push her, and she liked being pushed. So you know, and then we had the 6-year-old, and they felt safe because we didn't make a big deal about it, but I think we were all processing, you know, because kids are, you know, their mom and dad, they're safe. And but I was still kind of, it's singular, you know, but I didn't have that feeling of hostility that the other one, that malevolent intent, like, I don't know, that was the animal, you know, that drive, that, like I said, I was prey. I felt that I was prey, but this one didn't. It bounded off and ran. It crashed that way. But it's just uncomfortable knowing that it was probably watching. And then you think about things like a child is small, you know, and it's a scary thought to think, because they're not, it's an animal. If it can see it an easy meal, it's going to take it, whether it's a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, you know what I mean? A possum, a raccoon, a dog, a puppy, or your leftovers at a campsite.
Yeah. Do you think it got distracted, or do you think it intentionally did that to let you guys know it was there?
I think that we scared it. I think it's what it is, because my daughter, she stopped and she's mommy, and it scared her. So whatever she had seen, because I didn't see that, because I was pushing and I had to come by the trees, and that's what caused us to stop and to look that way. And I think that when we all stopped, and because like they're smart creatures, you know, when it saw us all looking where it was, you know what I mean, that its instinct to get out was triggered, you know, and I think that's probably what it was, just because there's 4 of us, one of it, you know, and it, like I said, it wasn't, it may have been, I don't know, I don't know how old they are, you know, but I mean, just the thin ranginess of it, it didn't have, you know, like a bulk of, you know, like in a pack of alphas or a pack of wolves, there's like the big one, which is your alpha usually, and then there's like the small little ones that are scraggly because, you know, they get less scraps or whatever, but it didn't have that huge, aggressive, like defiant thing. It just wanted gone, you know what I mean? So I think that instinct that it was outnumbered maybe, you know, and it knew that it, but either way, it was just interested, curious what we were doing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. And they say that humans are their entertainment, but like you said, you know, are they targeting the kids, the dogs, the food? I think that's most likely the case.
Well, yeah, I mean,
they're curious too.
They're curious, but I mean, clearly they study people enough to kind of, they have an idea of what to run from, what to watch for. If people stop and look at you, to run, or like they hide in plain sight. They can, you know. I mean, think about it. Something the color of a tree at dark, if it just stands there and closes its eyes, you know, you're not going to see the sheen of it, you know, because the lights are going to bounce off of it, and it blends in with everything else in the woods surrounding. You know, I mean, they're smart.
Yeah, if you never moved, you would have never seen them.
No, and that's what drew my eye, was that the movement. Like I said, and it's such dark, thick woods back in there. I mean, that's hugely dark, thick woods. So it might have been a little further out than 40 feet, 20, 40. So maybe, I don't know, 40 to 60 feet somewhere where that tree is there. But it's not that far with something with that height and power. You know what I mean? If it would have came at us, it would have been on us in a second. So.
Well, I'm glad everything was all right. You
know,
it went its own way, because
the other way.
if the thing would have came towards you, that would have been freaky.
That would have been, like I said, we were going to get camp wood, and I had a machete with me. And so, you know, that kind of made my older child, my little one, she didn't know to be afraid or not afraid. She just saw something big. But, the reaction of everybody else, you know.
Makes you wonder how many times these things are out there right next to people's camps and they have no idea.
Oh, I know for a fact that very first one that I heard it was, because I saw the footprint, it was closer than what Bill is to me right now from where we were.
Yeah.
And so how long it'd been there, I don't know. I might have been edging closer while the dog was pushing in the tent. You know, I was assuming that would have been because he was trying to get closer to protection. But it's incredible, really. That's intelligence. That's intelligence, and something that big with intelligence is terrifying. They're not just acting on nature like a bear has a habit because it's a habit. A lion has a nature because it's a lion, not necessarily a habit. But you know, it's their natures to be one way.
Yeah, they got a primal instinct.
Yeah, and these with an intelligent kind of, going hand in hand. It's that stalking. I mean, it's the feeling of being stalked. You know what I mean? That's what it is. It's just, and your prey. You're not the top of the food chain anymore. You're just not. You're the hunted. You've now been hunted. And the fact that they can hide, they can watch you, and you'll never know it. That's an excellent hunter, and that's scary.
All right, Bill, Stacy, thank you so much for openly sharing your Bigfoot encounters and experiences with me here on Sasquatch Theory. And it was an absolute pleasure to meet up with you guys. They were both extremely polite, and I had a blast exploring the conservation area, and hopefully next time we can meet up and go further down the trails. You certainly get a feeling in the Missouri forest that you're being watched by something. Maybe it's a deer, maybe it's a mountain lion, and possibly it could be a cryptid creature. Thank you everyone for tuning in today, and I appreciate everyone's support. Take care, and until the next one.